I stuck with my wife through her battle with cancer, and now she wants a hall pass. My wife and I have been married since 2001 and together since 1999. She is the most intelligent, thoughtful, caring, loyal person I know, and I have always thought of myself as fortunate to have met and married her. She is, even today, aesthetically beautiful, and men have told her this throughout our marriage. She has always shot them down. Earlier this year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer, stage 1, and had a full hysterectomy. I was never concerned about the cancer. It was diagnosed early, dealt with quickly, and she made a full recovery. I took time off work to look after her after the surgery and all seemed well. There were some to be expected emotional instances on her part, and although I am not an emotional person, we dealt with them together. After her recovery, she was insistent that we start living life to the fullest and took a 10-day trip to Europe, followed by a trip to Belize. I am fine with these things, building memories and crossing bucket list adventures off her list. I also understand that these are a result of feeling fragile on her part. She also took up yoga, swimming and healthy cooking classes. I was fully on board until last week. Last week she came home from work and told me she wanted a hall pass. A one-time opportunity for her to sleep with someone else besides me. She said that since her cancer diagnosis, her outlook on life has changed and she doesn't want to be handcuffed from doing things she wants to do. She explained that there's this guy at her work that she has always had some attraction to. He is leaving the company and she will never see him again, so this is the perfect opportunity to sleep with someone else. She said that I could say no of course, but that she would be disappointed with me for an indeterminate amount of time and that it would be confirmation of my male toxicity and insecurity. I don't consider myself to be toxic, and if not wanting your wife of over 20 years to sleep with someone else is insecure, then I guess I am insecure. I told her that I appreciated her talking to me about this, but approval via coercion is not approval. I also said that I do not appreciate her language in describing my, as of yet, unknown reaction to this very large issue that could affect the rest of our marriage and life together. I got up in the morning, and she basically said that she was sorry for putting such a large decision solely on my shoulders and that to help she was taking the decision away from me. I immediately sarcastically thought to myself, wow, thanks, that's just what I needed. She booked a hotel near where her coworkers are having a send-off party for this guy, and she would spend the night there with him and hoped that I would be here when she got back. She told me that she would answer any questions I have about the night after it happened, but not before. She would not tell me who he is or anything about him because she knows me too well and that I will dwell and obsess over him and that would make it too real for me, which is pretty accurate. Her idea was that the less I know the better, which contradicts the offer to tell me anything I want to know after it happened. At first I thought, at least she has been honest with me and she has been through a lot since finding out she had cancer, so maybe I should just let it happen. I certainly have no concept of what she went through, so I cannot dismiss how this affected her outlook on life. I even called her best friend to talk about it. And she called me callous for just being on the fence about it, because I have no idea what she went through. After that conversation, I was feeling pretty bad about it all, and was going to apologize and give my wife my blessing. But it also happened to be Thursday during NFL season, and me and my boys always get together to watch the games. Before apologizing to my wife, I thought it would be nice to get my mind off of the whole thing and watch some football with my guys. So I went to my friend Jerry's house, and we had a few beers, and then I let it spill about what was going on. Jerry was the first to react. His jaw dropped to the floor, and he just said, "Are you joking?" I shook my head. Then Kevin, who was my best man, shook his head and said, "Dude, cancer or no cancer, that's totally messed up. You've been married for 20 years now, it's way too late to spring something like that on you." Larry, who never really got along well with my wife, just said, "I told you she was crazy, man. You gotta dump her if she goes through with it." After he said that, I responded, "Come on Larry, that's way too far," and looked around the room for approval from the rest of the guys. None of them were in agreement with me. In fact, they all more or less agreed with Larry. I then told them what her best friend had said to me. Kevin was just like, "Dude, she's her best friend. Of course she's going to take her side. Why would you even talk to her? That's like being in an echo chamber." After talking with them some more, I felt ironclad in my conviction that I was not okay with my wife sleeping with some other guy, and that if she did, I would divorce her. When I went home that night, I felt strong. I was hoping that my opposition to her plans would give her pause, but unfortunately that did not happen. I told her, "I am a hard no, and I am not sure how I will feel about you if you go ahead with it." I was met once again with, "This is for me, it will be one time. What can I say to help you deal with it? You'll get over it. We were meant to be regardless of the situation." I told her that this could very well be the end of our relationship, but she didn't seem to believe me, or she just didn't care. She left Saturday, ostensibly to meet her coworkers, but in reality, it was all to sleep with the guy. I asked her to text me when she was leaving for the bar, and when she did, I asked her if she was really going to go through with this. After her response, "I am not answering any more questions tonight. I will see you tomorrow," I blocked my wife. Then I did something either stupid or brilliant. I went to the bar where the get-together was happening. Well, not the bar, but a transit bench across the street. I waited for a long time. It was running through my mind leading up to this event that I needed to know who this guy was, maybe to compare myself against him, to see what he had that I do not. It was driving me crazy not knowing who he was and what was so special about him that she would ruin a marriage for. For context, I'm in very good shape for my age and I'm 6'2", so I had always felt pretty confident in my looks, at least until this happened. I was imagining some sort of younger, more attractive guy who was in better shape or something. After what seemed like eternity, a woman that I recognized from my wife's office left the bar and got in a cab. Soon other people started filing out and a whole group came out and people were hugging a man and shaking his hand. I assumed that I had my guy. I didn't see my wife and had a brief thought that maybe she called it all off. I unblocked her and there were no messages. Everyone said their goodbyes and left. Dude was standing outside for a few minutes and then my wife came out. She looked around, took his hand and started walking away together. Of all the emotions I went through, trepidation, sadness, anger, it was disgust that really encapsulated the event for me. This guy was short, fat, and bald, all the things I cannot compete with, because who wants to be short, fat, and bald? Ultimately, I felt gross for watching from a distance. I followed until they got to the hotel, and then turned around and went home. Then I texted Larry, the guy who didn't like my wife from the start. I told him she was going through with it, and that I was going through with the divorce. He was a veteran of no less than 4 divorces, so he knew all the tricks. With his advice, hopefully at least I could get a good settlement. He immediately started telling me how to proceed. I woke up Sunday morning and put a lock on the master bedroom door. I moved her things to the spare room and left a note asking her to find other accommodations as quickly as possible. I visited Larry, and he gave me some sage advice, as well as a couple of recommendations for divorce attorneys and made the introductions. My wife had been calling me numerous times since around 11 or so. Once blocked the calls go to voicemail. I listened to the first couple but felt nothing but some satisfaction when she couldn't get through to me and she was obviously becoming concerned. I didn't want to go home but I left in such a hurry that I didn't plan an overnight properly. I got home around 9 and as per my Larry's advice, I recorded the interaction. I was halfway up the stairs when she came up from the family room asking, "What's going on? Could we talk? I thought we talked about this." I just answered, "I am not interested in discussing this tonight," and went to bed. After not getting a response from me through the door she left me alone. I feel kind of like a child for not talking with her and shutting the door on her but I just couldn't look at her. Monday I got up and ready for work. She was waiting for me and asked if we could discuss getting back to normal. I said, "You have been doing all the talking for the both of us for the last week, why don't you continue?" and left for work. I have an appointment with the attorney Larry recommended for this week. My ex-wife came out as lesbian and left me and my daughters 3 years ago, and now she's back. 3 years ago my wife came out as lesbian. We've been together for many years. In fact our oldest daughter was 14 at the time and my youngest was 10. Our life was good. Both me and my wife worked so we had stable finances and I thought we were happy. That was until one evening my wife sat us down and explained that she fell out of love with me, and realized she is gay. She explained how she was in love with a female colleague from her workplace and that she wants to be with her. She said she was sorry but she had to find out who she was and that would only be possible if she'd let her old life behind herself. The typical breakup nonsense. On that day she left us and cut the contact. For me and my daughters the world fell apart. I knew that I now had to take care of my daughters all by myself. I was in a state of depression for a long time but I kept fighting for my daughters. Every attempt to contact my ex-wife failed. Luckily I found a much better paying job that made it possible for me to give them the world. My daughters had good grades in school and I knew that our life would soon be better again. But once in a while when I took my youngest daughter to bed she asked if I would leave. I hugged her and gave her a kiss on the forehead and promised her that I would never leave them and that I love them more than anything in the world. I was so angry at my ex-wife because she was the one that gave her those feelings. I wonder if she ever realized what she had done to her daughters. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, my daughters and I sat in the living room and I told them that because Christmas month was already next month they should write down what they want for Christmas. My oldest daughter is now 17 and my youngest is now 13. While they were busy writing the doorbell rang and I wondered who it was. When I opened the door I froze in shock. It was my ex-wife with a big smile on her face. She said she was happy to see me and she tried to hug me but I refused to hug her. My oldest daughter then came up behind me and asked me who it was and when she saw her mother her face expression immediately changed. I've never seen her so angry. My ex-wife tried to apologize and she wanted to hug her but my daughter pushed her away and shouted at her to leave and that she never ever wants to see her again. Then my youngest daughter also joined us. She just got angry too, turned around and went to her bedroom. Then my oldest one followed her to comfort her. From the look on her face I figured she was ashamed as she should be. I asked what she wanted. She said that the last 3 years weren't good years for her. She constantly thought of her daughters and wanted to see them again but for some reason she never came by because she was expecting this exact response from them. But she guessed that she deserved this. She asked if I could talk to them. I told her that I could tell them she was sorry and let them decide but I will not push them into doing anything they don't wanna. She was okay with that and left. She also left me her new number to contact her. I then got into my daughter's room. She cried in the arms of her older sister. I told them what their mother has told me. I told them that if they'd want to meet her, They could do that. It would be okay for me. My oldest daughter said that she cannot forgive her for doing what she did and that I was everything they need. It was good to hear this. Really good. I always thought that being a single parent would mean that I might never be enough for my children. Hearing this made me so happy. My youngest daughter said I always thought I missed her, but now that she is in front of me I never want to see her again. I texted my ex-wife about that. She read it but she didn't respond. But she didn't give up that easily. She showed up at our house once more while my daughters played ping pong outside. I was in the living room watching TV when I suddenly heard loud shouting outside of the house. I immediately got there and I saw my oldest daughter arguing with my ex-wife. My oldest daughter shouted at her that she had no idea what she did to me. She told her about how depressed I was and everything I went through. This was kind of surprising because I wanted my daughters to feel secure with me, so I've never told them of my depression and the suffering I went through. Then she continued how she felt over the years knowing that her mother left her and that she'll never forgive her. My 13-year-old was crying while that happened, so I hugged and comforted her, but I also don't want to interfere because if my oldest daughter wanted to tell her mother anything I'm not gonna stop her. Just to protect my ex-wife's feelings. Overall she never cared about her feelings either. After she was done she came hugging me as well and I told my ex-wife she should leave us alone. If she ever showed up here again, we get a restraining order. She left with tears in her eyes. Well, that was 3 days ago and she hasn't showed up again so far. I just hope she leaves us alone. My daughters made it very clear they don't want to have anything to do with her. I wanted to give them the opportunity to meet their mother again because if there is any chance that my children have a mother again I don't want to stay in their way. My wife cheated and it went horribly wrong for her. Me and my wife just moved into a big city to start new jobs. Life was generally pretty good. We were in love, had love making regularly and never really argued too much. But everything changed when my wife met Jane at work. Jane worked directly with my wife and was the person she had the most contact with at work. They quickly became friends and initially I was happy she found someone she gets along with so quickly and can go out for drinks, but then it started to go downhill. Jane started trying to convince my wife that I was holding her back, that monogamy is no longer needed by women who have jobs, and that she should be hooking up with men way more conventionally attractive than me. I didn't know all this was going on until after, as mentioned at the start. Jane would always go on about my height, I am 5 feet 8 inches, and how I'm not traditionally masculine. I saw texts between them after the fact and Jane was describing the feeling of being with a more masculine man, how it's something every woman should experience, and asking my wife about me and how dominant I am. Granted I am not the most dominant guy in the bedroom, but I would be more than happy to do so if my wife had discussed this with me. This went on for months. At this point Jane was full on trying to convince my wife that I'm not good enough for her. She had learned from my wife things that I have supposedly done wrong and would labor on those points. For example, how I was unable to fix her car and had to call someone so she was late for an important meeting. I am not a mechanic but apparently men know how to fix cars. She was sending my wife content and podcasts to watch about relationships and women's needs in a relationship. Eventually, my wife started being reciprocal to Jane. This is when Jane upped the ante, started calling me horrible names to do with my height, and my wife just went along with it. From here, Jane moved on to her second stage. She introduced her to a guy. A traditionally masculine guy who was tall and muscular and supposedly better than me. So my wife was talking with him, started off platonic, but soon progressed to flirting, and eventually full-on love-making texting. Won't go into what he said but it was extremely detailed in what he would do to my wife. Unlike the woman I thought I knew, she seemed to love it, and they eventually began arranging to hook up. This is where things began to unravel for my wife. She was extremely stupid and booked a hotel using our joint card. I asked her about it and she said it was for work. I said, why on earth do you need a hotel 10 minutes away for work? She had not prepared for this and was like a deer in headlights. She said the company are having drinks there and people booked rooms to stay the night. I could tell she was lying. I assume given everything Jane has been telling her she expected a guy like me to just roll over and not even question it. Now I was suspicious. A few days later when she was asleep I went through her phone and connected WhatsApp to my computer so I could have a proper look without her knowing. This is where I discovered all those messages. I didn't really know what to do at this point but the day of the hotel stay rolled around and I decided I had to confront her, so I did, and she wasn't even apologetic. In fact she said it is what she has needed for years and it may actually help our marriage. I told her if she walks out that door we are done. And she left after basically saying she doesn't care right now cause she's got him waiting for her. I didn't see my wife for the next 3 days. I resisted the urge to call her or beg her to come home, and was trying my hardest to go along with it. Then I got a call. It was from her company's HR department. They wanted me to go in for a meeting. When I arrived I sat down with 2 HR staff, and I guess one of the managers. They explained that I am here as I need to be told as part of an ongoing investigation. That I have been spoken about using work communication systems and that the result of this was a huge fight between 2 employees. I was very confused and asked who the fight was between. They said my wife and Jane. They could sense I was even more confused and said that they will explain everything. Long story short, after my wife left that night the guy didn't show. My wife then found out that the guy she had been cheating on me with was not actually a guy. It was Jane catfishing her. When my wife found out, she was at work and there was a huge fight, hence why I was there now to answer some questions. And that's the reason I said I can't believe this happened. My wife is now unemployed and has lost her husband because she got catfished. My wife of 7 years cheated on me, now everyone in my circle wants me to take her back. I met my wife 10 years ago, we both were in college, dated for 3 years and married for 7. She is a beautiful and amazing person and everyone in my family loves her. 4 months ago I found out my wife was having an affair with a mutual friend of ours. It was a 1.5-month affair. She was acting very shady at that time. She would ignore my messages, turn me down every time I tried to initiate sex. I thought something was wrong. I did some snooping but found nothing. Eventually I hired a PI and within 1 week I got proof. She was having an affair with our mutual friend. I immediately confronted her, and she confessed to having an affair. Immediately she started crying, begging. Basically all classic cheater moves when they are caught. I asked her for all details, with a detailed timeline, and at night gave me everything. Basically she was using another phone to have an affair. She told me she had sex with him only 4 times and the rest of time they were just hanging out and having fun. 3 days later, more crying and talking crap about herself. She told me that she had deleted all contracts with him and would do whatever it takes to make our marriage work. She suggested MC. I denied, told her to leave me alone. I was hurt, betrayed, humiliated. She moved out to her parents. She started texting me every hour how much she loves me and how she regrets this, and will do anything to save our marriage. After completely ignoring her for 2 days, I texted her that we are getting divorced. She freaked out and started having emotions breakdown. My phone started blowing up with her parents, sister, friends telling me not to end the marriage and at least give her a chance. Later that day she made a long post on FB explaining how she fucked up and how she has destroyed her marriage, basically admitting her affair publicly. But I was rock solid on my decision. She even insisted on having a lie detector test to clear my doubts that she never cheated in the past. Blah, blah, blah. I asked her for some time alone to process all this. We have been living separately since. This was all 4 months ago. Last week I asked her for divorce and she started crying, begging for another chance. After that she visited my parents and asked them to convince me not to divorce. Last night my parents and her parents tried to convince me to work things out. And after she made her FB post, almost all of our mutual friends were telling me how she was brave to admit her affair. She loves me and I should at least give her a chance. I'm on the edge of having a breakdown. She is truly remorseful and regrets this, I can assure you this. I do love her and her cheating on me hurts the most. I don't know what to do. Anyone who is reconciled, how are things going? Small update. First of, thanks to each and every one of you. The amount of support I got in last 15 hours was unbelievable. I'm sorry I couldn't reply to your comments and PM. I'm trying to answer some common questions. We don't have kids. We were planning to have kids after this pandemic was over. We both own a business and we work together. I haven't talked to her in almost 3 months, only business-related stuff. Here's the update. After reading all your comments and PMs, I decided, talk to my parents. I called them and told them that I was going for divorce. After an hour later, she called me crying, not to end it, and told me to at least meet her in person. Since the D-Day I haven't seen her or talked about affair. Every time I talked, I ignored the talk about the affair. She told me she'll explain everything. At least hear her side of the story. And after hearing it, whatever decision I'll take, she'll respect that. Since I don't know what was going on and don't have much information about the affair, it will be light closure to me, so I've decided to meet her on Sunday. That's it, nothing dramatic.